Marc Raimondi for ESPN, joined today by Belal Muhammad, UFC welterweight. How about this? Contender Belal Muhammad, not UFC welterweight fighter, UFC welterweight contender. Of course, Belal, you're coming off a huge win, biggest win of your career on Saturday against Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Dare I say, dominant victory over Wonderboy, one of the most impressive victories over Wonderboy that we have seen in the UFC. How are you, man? You must be feeling pretty good now a few days later.
Yeah, man. Honestly, I'm good. You don't got to dare to say it. Just say it. I don't think anybody's beat Wonderboy as good as that, and nobody's ever looked that good against Wonderboy. So, yeah, I earned that right there.
100% true. And I did want to ask you about that fight at first. I mean, it seems like everything went exactly the way that your game plan dictated, but take me, reflect on that a little bit. Take me inside that fight. How did you do it? And what was the strategy?
Yeah, when you're fighting a guy like Wonderboy who's so good and striking, and it was like the hardest puzzle, like where guys will turn down fighting with them because they don't want to have to deal with, oh, should I bring this guy in? Who do I bring in? Oh, make sure you're bringing in this guy. Everybody thinks that they know who's the guy to bring in. But having my own, having been into camps with Anthony Pettis, seeing Tyron Woodley fight for him, so I've seen what those two guys went through camp. Talking with Anthony Pettis and my team and stuff, we just didn't want to overthink it. We knew what we had to do. We figured that we had to be in his face. We knew we couldn't give him any space at all. And whether it was through wrestling or just dirty boxing in the inside or straight striking in the inside, that's what I was going to be. I was going to be within 1 foot of him the whole time. And the first, plan A is to, all right, well, let's see where the wrestling is. Obviously, Gilbert Burns took him down that last fight. So we're like, all right, well, let's see how that wrestling feels with me. And it felt really good. So I didn't have to move to a plan B or C or any of the other ones, but I was prepared for everything, honestly.
Yeah, man, it was a great win, obviously, impressive win. Now you're ranked in the top 5, and I do want to get to what that means for your future, but I want to stay on the Wonderboy fight for a little bit because it's such an impressive win. And I tweeted about it on Saturday night, and a lot of the replies were that you're a boring fighter, and it like drove me insane because these are people who have obviously not watched any of your past fights because you've been an exciting fighter in the division. I don't know what they expect. Do they just expect you to stand in front of Wonderboy, let him do his thing? I just don't get it. Any response to those critics?
I mean, honestly, a lot of those, seeing the crowd over there, there were Wonderboy fans screaming out the worst things to me. I was like, man, Wonderboy got some of the worst fans for being some of the nicest guy in the world. But honestly, to all the naysayers, like, LOL. Like, I mean, I went in there and I dominated. It's not like I sat there and held him down and just didn't do anything with him. I had great ground and pound. I almost finished him in the first round. And I didn't want to. I'm not gonna sit there and play kickboxing with the kickboxing world champion. Like, people are just slow, and that's one of the reasons I honestly don't read comments anymore. Basically, because especially Twitter. Twitter's the worst. Those people over there, like 90% of them are airheads and troll accounts. Hiding behind those. I already know there's a lot of haters out there that are hating that I'm going to the top. But yeah, you guys are gonna be seeing a lot more of that me up there. So stay tuned.
It's just the strangest thing when someone says that a fighter who has a track record for having exciting fights is boring. It reminds me of a few years ago when Eddie Alvarez came to the UFC, and I think maybe he had 1 or 2 fights that were not the most exciting, and people were like, oh, Eddie Alvarez is a boring fighter. Meanwhile, if you look at his past history, it's all exciting fights, right? And you're very, you're similar, but styles make fights. Sometimes you can't stand and bang with guys who are great kickboxers. You have to have it, God forbid you have a strategy and you got to execute it, right? I mean, I just don't understand what the criticisms are here.
I mean, I think I was one of those guys that was tweeting out Eddie's a boring fighter when he fought Anthony Pettis and he just pushed it to the cage and played the wrestling game. But like you said, it's styles makes fights. Anthony's my boy, so I wanted to see Anthony go in there and strike with him. So I mean, it doesn't affect me in any way. Like, I understand martial arts, and I showed my game. I think this year where a lot of people's eyes open. Where the Maya fight, I had to defend 25 takedowns and keep it standing on the feet. The Diego Lima fight, I threw 230 strikes and put the work on him the whole time that we're fighting. And then this fight, I had to take him down 7 times. So I showed I could do anything and I could adjust to any type of opponent. And I showed that I'm not just a one-way fighter where I only have one way I could win a fight. I could win a fight any way I want.
Certainly the Twitter criticism is one thing, and that's it is what it is, right? It's social media, but some of the things that were said there at the UFC Apex on Saturday night were, I mean, that's really unfortunate, and I'm not sure why that happened. But can you hear some of this stuff? Like, can you hear what people are saying? What are they saying? And did you address this with the UFC afterward? Can you tell me a little bit about this?
People are just the guy who was saying it, you could just tell that he was just being ignorant or drunk or something stupid. But I'm like, are these Wonder Boy fans right here? Like, this is ridiculous. I'm like, all right, well, I'm gonna keep doing what I'm doing right now.
Obviously, it doesn't get in your head, right? Because you continued on and you still dominated the fight. So, I mean, no effect on you whatsoever, I assume.
Yeah, it didn't affect me. Like, I wanted to talk trash back to him, but I was there like, I can't see who it is. But I'm like, it's all good. I'm just gonna keep beating your boy.
Is that a different dynamic at the Apex because it is such a small, intimate setting, and you could hear a lot more, I imagine, than being in a big arena where people are screaming. Is that different?
Yeah, it's way different because you hear everything. You hear somebody coughing in the crowd where I'm looking at like, yo, you got COVID? You got COVID tested? And I'm like, all right. Yeah, it's a different feel because it's honestly kind of like sparring where you're in a small little gym and all your boys and stuff are watching. And for me, unfortunately, I didn't have anybody in the crowd. I couldn't get my family in there. So like 90% of the people that I heard screaming were off for Wonder Boy. And I'm like, dang, they let all the Wonder Boys fans in here, huh?
Crazy, but obviously you still got the win, dominant win, biggest win of your career. I would say I don't think anyone is really objecting to that. Puts you in prime position right now. I think you're unbeaten in 7 straight. Only one loss in the last 12 fights, I believe. It's a remarkable run that you're going on, and I think people got to start putting respect on your name. But my question is I think since Saturday night, you've called out every other contender in the welterweight division, or at least mentioned someone's name or all of their names on social media. What is next for Belal Muhammad?
I'm just trying to get one of these freak clowns to answer. All these guys sit once you get to the top. Some Will Harris, someone's like, yeah, now you're gonna start figuring out what politics is about because all these guys, that's when these guys start politicking and resting on their ranking. They all want to wait there and maybe there's a chance that Usman will fight me, or maybe there's a chance that Nate Diaz will fight me because I get a big money fight. But for me, I just want to stay active. I want to fight these guys that they're so-called the best in the world. Masvidal has been saying that he wants to whatever's going to get him to the title shot. Well, I'm right above Masvidal, and I just beat 2 guys that beat Masvidal. So come and get those wins back by beating me. That's a good fight. I think that one makes sense. If Colby ever comes out, and I've been calling that guy out for like 10 years, if he ever wants to fight, I'll definitely take that one. Like I'm ready to fight all these guys, and I want to just stay active because I mean, obviously, Leon's gonna sit there, wait on the sidelines, and I don't know if he got promised the title fight already or blah whatever. But dude's not responding to anything. Dude's staying in like witness protection, not talking to nobody. I don't know if they got internet in London, but he's acting like he don't watch fights. But putting that fight on, I think that opened a lot of these guys' eyes, and for sure, a lot of these guys are not going to want to answer that call if Dana texts them or calls them.
If you had your pick, if you had your choice, what would be, the most preferred opponent next?
Most preferred, I would say Kobe, just because for the disdain I have for him, I don't like him at all. But obviously for more the fan fight, I think a Masvidal fight would be fun, just because our styles match up very well, and he has a bunch of fans that I could steal some of those guys, and I think just those 2 make the most sense out of all of them, honestly.
I think both would be great fights. The division is very open right now. It does seem like Edwards is getting the next title shot against Usman, but there are a lot of fighters who Usman has already beaten who could be possible opponents for you to kind of shake up the contendership there. I saw you also put out a poster with you and Khamzat Chimaev. Is that a fight that interests you?
Yeah, honestly, I think besides Kamaru, beating him probably gets you the most hype in the division right now because he has that McGregor feel to him where the fans think he's untouchable and thinks he has over 3 million followers or whatever like that. Dana thinks that this guy's untouchable. So when the boss thinks he's untouchable, you go in there, you beat him, then the boss is going to recognize you. So I think that, yeah, I would want that fight as well. I just think that stylistically, I match up very well with this guy for a guy that just beat Li Jingliang, who has no grappling at all. And I knew what he was going to do before that fight even happened. So like, to me, he's not this untouchable boogeyman that everybody's afraid of it. I would be down to fight him as well, and I think that would also be a fun fight for us.
Are you buying into, or I guess maybe I should say, how much are you buying into this Khamzat Chimaev hype?
I mean, honestly, he's obviously good. You know, when you get hit one time and he beat one of my teammates, Gerald Mershar. Like I tell people all the time, it's like people still comment on this thing. I'm like, anybody can get caught in a fight. Anybody can get hit with a punch. All it takes is one punch. It's 4-ounce gloves. So I don't think I don't consider that a real fight because it didn't happen. As you can see, Gerald, this guy literally fights to the end. A third round submission this weekend. Looked amazing, and it has the most submissions at middleweight. But Chimaev knocked him out in the first round. So it's like you really couldn't see what you could have got from that fight. But you know, obviously I think his wrestling is good. We really didn't get to see a lot of his striking, but I've seen him outside of the UFC. He's good, but I don't think that he's this untouchable Drago from Rocky that nobody can touch. Like I'm a guy that, being a fighter, I like to figure guys out. And I want to fight the best of the best and the guys that they think is the best. So if the UFC think he's the best and they think that he's next in line for Usman, well, let them come through me first, and I'll show you how good I really am. Because I've sat there, I fought Damian Maia, who's one of the toughest puzzles in the division. Wonder Boy, who's one of the toughest puzzles in the division. He has the best grappling. He has the best striking. And I just beat both of them. And it just showed that, like, I'm one of the best at putting it all together. I think I'm one of the best fighter in the UFC that could put everything together and mix it all well.
You mentioned Colby as the guy that you probably want the most at this point. He seems like he's kind of established himself as the number 2 guy in the division, right? You know, he's had those 2 close fights against Usman. You mentioned you don't like him very much. Why is that? What is it about Colby that rubs you the wrong way?
He's always said some disrespectful things, and when the stuff that he says is very like low and it's stupid, honestly. And it's like his fake persona just pisses me off. And I take everything personally when, especially he said stuff about former coach Duke Rufus and Daniel Wanderlei and then people of Brazil. But also, like, when Dana White says, "Oh, if Usman wasn't here, Colby would be a champion," I take that personally. Like, I'm here. I think I would be champion, and I think I'm going to be champion. So, like, if Colby's the guy that they think is the next best in the division, so let me get a taste of that. Let me put him through the ringer and show you how good I really am.
And then, when would you say you'd like to get back in there? Do you have like a time frame?
Honestly, I'm healthy. I'm ready to go. My teammate Bahamundes is fighting in February, so I'm gonna have to be back in the gym, training with him and working with him. So like I'm not a guy that really takes time off. I'm a guy that's like, I want to take advantage of being healthy because you never know how long you can't be healthy for. So especially in this sport where it's so easy to get hurt. So for me, like, I fought 4 times this year. I think I could have got like 6 times in if the UFC would have booked me. So I would have been ready to go regardless. But for me, I'm healthy, and especially now with the momentum I got, I just want to keep it going and just stay active. Like, I don't want to sit on the sideline. I don't want to be that guy that, oh, well, let me be the backup just in case, and let me just do a training camp for nothing and lose weight and stuff like that. Like, I want to just put me on the same card as a title fight, and if I'll be a backup that way.
Do you think, I mean, it seems like you put yourself in position now and you're not far off a title shot. Do you think, you win 1 or 2? Do you think you're that close? Maybe even win 1?
Yeah, I think just depending on who the next opponent is, if it's a big name or somebody like that, where I go in there and I beat them handily, I think that I can be next in line for sure. And especially if these guys, I don't know when Kamaru was planning on fighting or not, but UFC don't care. It's about who's hot right now, who's pushing it right now. So, like, if I fight and Leon still sits out, like, I think he'll probably have like 8 fights. Well, he's only had 3 fights in the last 2 years or something like that. So something like, I'm the one being active. I'm the one trying to fight all these tough guys, the guys that guys say no to all the time. I'm the one saying yes.
You mentioned your teammate, Ignacio Bahamundes, big year 2021, promising prospect coming out of Chicago, and, your team with Mike Valley. Another one of your teammates, Julianna Pena. How much did you work with her before the Amanda Nunes fight?
Honestly, we're a small gym, so we're all in there together and stuff like that. So, like, I'm seeing how hard she's pushing, how hard she's grinding, especially after seeing that first one get canceled. And then I was like, all right, you're going to give her extra time. And when people look at her and they see how she talks and they're like, oh, well, she doesn't even believe it herself. And I'm looking at her like, oh, she believes it. She's in the gym. We're pushing each other. We're a very small gym, but we all love each other. We all push each other to the limits. We all motivate each other. So, like, if I'm doing something after practice that's extra, then that's gonna make her do something after practice extra, him do something after practice that's extra, and it just like high tides raise all ships. So like after seeing her defeat the GOAT like that, the one that the boogie woman that nobody could beat, and she beat her in her own game, outstruck her and drowned her. I was like, so much motivation coming from that, so much heat coming from that, and like couldn't have been happier.
I got to ask you about that win, because I know that, you know, fighters are always confident in their teammates, and they see, you know, what goes on behind closed doors that we don't see, and they're always confident. But the way that she beat Nunes, man, like you know, she walked her down and then choked her out in the second round. I think a lot of people were shocked by that. Were you surprised by it?
I wasn't surprised by it, because literally, like, there was a couple of weeks during the her camp where I got in there and I sparred with her a little bit, give her some looks. Obviously, I'm not gonna throw hard because I got Francis Ngannou power, but you know, I gave her just some different looks, and like, she's tough. She's not a girl that's afraid to get punched. She's not a girl that's afraid that's gonna back down. She's not a fighter that's gonna, you know, a lot of the fighters that Mania fights, they're afraid before the fight even starts, where you see them shit. Megan Anderson looked like she was shaking when they were announcing the name, and you're looking at it like, oh, this guy she doesn't believe that she could win. Julianna Pena, I was like, on my podcast, I even said it. I was like, she's not one of those girls that's gonna back down. She's gonna be in your face. She could take a punch. She could take a hit. And if Amanda Nunes is so used to all these girls folding after one hit, what is she gonna do when Julianna Pena is still standing there after she gets hit 5 or 6 times? What's she gonna do when Julianna Pena is throwing back at her? Julianna's gonna shoot on you 10 times in a fight and gas you out. You're so used to being at 45 the last 3 or 4 fights. You have to cut weight to get down to 35. Cutting weight, that kills your cardio, that kills your confidence. And just her being so dominant, and then fighting a girl like Julianna, who's a dog. She's gonna be in there with you. She's gonna bleed. She loves that stuff. So she loves to feel the pain. And Amanda's not used to fighting girls like that.
How did that sparring session go with you and her? Did she tag you a couple times?
It's one of those things where you're like, all right, I'm gonna go a little soft. All of a sudden she hits you, like, all right, relax. And then pop, she does it. She started throwing hard calf kicks. I'm like, all right. But I'm used to sparring with Paul Felder, who literally has no chill during sparring at all. So like, it was nothing new to me.
Yeah, Juliana doesn't seem like she messes around very much. She seems like she'll go full bore 100%.
Yeah. She ain't playing around. She's gonna do that, and then she's gonna try to pick you up and slam you. And it was just fun because it's cool because you're looking at it, you're like, we're actually seeing it. I'm like, man, like, the people don't see it, but they don't believe in it. And you're like, when she talks and she has that self-belief, I already believe in her because I'm seeing how hard she's working, how she's pushing it. But I'm like, I'm an analyst too, and I'm looking at it like as in a style matchup wise. And I was like, she has the style to beat Amanda in general. And just with her self-belief added to that, I don't think that she's going to lose this fight. And she went out there and she showed it.
I want to ask you about one of your former teammates, and he fought also Saturday night. Tyron Woodley got knocked out by Jake Paul. Immediate reaction to that knockout.
I mean, honestly, it's hard because, he's one of those guys, one of my boys, and he's like such a good guy. So like, you never want to see one of your guys lose or get knocked out in that fashion. But like, he's been a fighter for so long, been a champion for so long. I just don't want it to ruin or tarnish his legacy, where people forget about how good he was and how much of a champion he was. But like, I mean, he seems like he's taking it very well. I know that he's definitely getting paid very well for it. I just, I don't want him to be in there too long, where you're like, now this guy lost 10 in a row, or now he's just getting embarrassed type thing like that. I mean, maybe this just proves that Jake Paul is actually good. He has power, obviously. He's obviously working hard and he's training. Maybe like I said, he's just probably like a hidden boxer that's just playing the YouTube part. Maybe he actually knows how to fight. But always going to respect T. Woodley for everything he does, and he's helped me so much, and I'm always going to respect him as a champion no matter what. For sure.
And I hope you're right. I hope that doesn't tarnish his legacy. He's still, no matter what happens, he's still one of the best welterweights of all time. I mean, no one can take that away from him. Just a few more questions for you, man, and I appreciate the time. During the holidays, I wanted to ask you to put your analyst hat on for a minute here, because there's a big heavyweight title fight coming up in a few weeks. The first big card of the new year of 2022, Francis Ngannou versus Ciryl Gane. How does that fight play out? I'm so fascinated by this fight. They're former training partners. Can you give me some of your analysis, some of your insight?
Honestly, man, it's a very interesting fight because the Francis Ngannou that fought last fight against Stephen Miocic, that was a different Francis. That wasn't the Francis let me bull rush you and throw wild strikes at you. That was a very good Francis, composed, very smart with the jab, very smart with his boxing, leg kicks, everything. And Gane is just so good. He's just like so smooth and light on his feet. But honestly, I just think that he was very young in the sport and he keeps getting better and he's showing that he's still getting better. And being an analyst and being in Vegas a lot, I go down there and I work with Extreme Couture and I work with Eric Nixick a lot. And I see that his mindset, how good he is as a coach. And I know that he's working with these guys, working with Francis, and I think he's leveling them up every single time. And the little bit, a little long of a break for Francis, but I think that it's just going to be a different Francis now. And I think that Francis, especially with that one punch power, I just think that he's going to end up catching Gane.
Do you see a path to victory for Gane?
The path to victory, I think, is just staying on the outside, playing with his kicks, kind of like a Wonder Boy, using that side kick a lot, staying long with it, and then frustrating Francis because you could only be composed for so much before your old style comes back out. Where we've seen it a couple times with Gaethje, where all right, dang, this new poised Gaethje is different. But then you get into the Michael Chandler fight, oh, the old Gaethje started coming out, and I think that's what he could do if he brings that out with Francis. Where he brings out the old wild Francis again, and then you catch him coming in a little bit. Keep him on outside with your kicks, your push kick, your side kick, and then you can play that game. I don't think that Gane's going to go the route of trying to wrestle him or take him down or anything like that. I think that it's going to be an all stand-up fight unless Francis is the one that shoots in and takes him down.
You think Francis might shoot?
Honestly, I've heard that his wrestling in the room is getting way better. He's learning. He's in there, like he's one of those guys. A lot of guys avoid wrestling practice because they don't want to learn it, especially if you're a guy with knockout power. But they say that Francis loves learning, loves grappling, and he loves being in the room.
Could that be the X factor? Francis is wrestling and grappling?
Imagine that. Just has that Deontay Wilder power and the freaking Khabib wrestling. That was just like the perfect fighter.
That's actually completely terrifying. I have to be honest with you. Could you imagine? Yikes.
Oh man, that would be like that would be the Terminator right there.
So you think Francis? You think he finishes?
Yeah, I think Francis is gonna end up finishing. I just don't see it going to decision. Any Francis fight going to decision unless it's the Black Beast mayhem again. But I don't see that ever happening again.
Okay, last thing and the most important thing, in my opinion, your pal CM Punk saw you in Chicago a few months ago at All Out. Have you been following his return to pro wrestling in AEW?
Yeah, honestly, it's like being at that wrestling show is so cool because I'm like, it's a whole different type of energy. And I used to be a huge wrestling fan when I was younger, the Stone Cold era, the Rock era. And then being at there, I was like, dang, man, dude, like whether you know anything about the wrestlers or not, like it's a different feel when you get in there, especially when you see your boy in there and you see how much people love him. But I see he's turning heel now a little bit. So I'm like, all right, he's getting there, but I'm like, dude, he's good at trash talking. He's good at like treating these guys. And I want to see more of that. Cause like I said, we're in the room and in the gym and stuff like that. We're going back and forth with each other. All of us, we're all making fun of each other. So like, I see how good he is with it. Like I like seeing it now that people are starting to realize, oh man, this guy's slick and quick witted.
So CM Punk is out here talking trash at Rufus Sport?
Dude, yeah, he's one of the top trash talkers over there.
Okay, give me your favorite CM Punk trash talk line from Rufus Sport.
I gotta. It's one of those that's usually on the spot, but like, no, he's good. You gotta hang out with him for a little bit, and all the guys there. You know who's really good is Gerald. Gerald's one of those sleepers that people don't realize how smart and quick-witted he is. But he's not as funny as me, but he's up there.
Has Punk ever trash talked you?
Yeah, we go back and forth all the time. Especially we did that Twitch thing with Jens Pulver, and we were going back and forth on there a little bit. It was fun.
This guy, he's doing great. I'm not sure about the whole heel thing. He's going against MJF, who is like one of the biggest heels in AEW. But down the line, that is one of the best strengths of CM Punk, though, right? Just being just talking that crap. That's one of the best. That's he's famous for his promos.
Yeah, exactly. He's good. I got to learn some stuff from him, honestly.
Awesome. Belal, again, congratulations on the big win last Saturday. I think only big things for you coming up in 2022. I appreciate the time so much, and have a nice little break, hopefully, over the next few weeks.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate you. Hope to see you guys soon.
Thanks, Belal.